In the morphology of a plant, the flat leaf relates to the flat qualities of Libra, the circular flower to the shape of the rings of Leo. The sign of Taurus relates to the stem of the plant and where it descends into the root system. Taurus rules parts of an organism where there is a narrowing of the structure, which we term loosely in the human anatomy as the neck. But it is a loose description, applied to all kingdoms of nature, whatever the object. The neck of a bottle, the neck of a giraffe, the valley as a neck between two mountain ranges. All neckwear relates to Taurus. The necklace of gemstones, the necktie and the bow tie, the garland of flowers, the colourful scarf, the parson's collar. These are the attractive neck articles, adornments, and uses which make life more pleasant. But through the anatomical neck there pass many organs, most of them tubes, and Taurus rules tubes, the carotid and vertebral arteries that conduct oxygenated blood to the brain, the vulnerable jugular veins so near the skin, the esophagus or swallowing tube, the vertebral column of the spine, nerves and their plexuses, muscles and their tendons, and even endocrine glands. Other necks or narrowings bear a variety of different materials. The neck of a volcano, the peninsula of Malaya, the Isthmus of Panama, the English Channel, the Straits of Magellan, the neck of the femur, the neck of the uterus. Topping the list of recognized forms of violence done to the neck under the heading of punishment and execution must surely be decapitation. Taurus, in opposition to Scorpio, concerns severing at the neck. In Britain, this was through the use of an axe, which was swift and effective. Charles I made extra sure of kingly behaviour when he was unceremoniously executed in Whitehall by having his long hair restrained from his neck, tucking it under his cap. He also wore an extra shirt against the chill morning air, lest the people might think if he shivered it was from fear. A week later, his coffin was taken for burial at Windsor Castle. In France, decapitation was more often by the executioner's sword up until the French Revolution, when the guillotine did the bloody work on the neck. Saudi Arabia still uses the sword to this day. Equally grotesque is death by strangulation and garroting, where a cord is drawn tightly about the victim's neck to produce asphyxiation. But please note here that Taurus does not rule the act of hanging entirely on its own, but shares it with Leo. Hanging is more frequent in suicide today, and used only rarely in execution. Simple hangings, like the hanging of clothes out to dry, fall under the sign of Leo. The glyph of Taurus is displayed by the head and horns of the bull, the animal which typifies the qualities of this sign, with its thick neck and sturdy body. Taurus rules all bovine species and the leather goods produced from their hides. A very Taurian sight is the farmer showing off his bloodstock at an agricultural show, or the buyer bidding at a cattle auction. Certain lands come under Taurus, notably through the emblem of John Bull, the British Isles, and through cattle ranching and cowhands, the wide open plains of Texas. Then there's Spain, with its emphasis on bullfighting and flamenco dancing, where the heels beat the floor and wooden castanets provide the rhythm. For most onlookers, bullfighting, with its ridiculous posturing and heartless baiting, is a depressing sight. This spectacle in a bull ring came as comic relief and the naked truth to the surprised participant. Taurus rules the trunks of trees and the roots from which they spring. The more vigorous the roots, the more Taurian the object. Like the oak sapling that once split this mighty rock as it grew its massive trunk. Tree trunks that provide homes for squirrels and sustenance for parasitic ivy and fungus. The routing out of their nests and tree trunks by woodpeckers. Trunks that withstand the ravages of winter and sometimes provide us with scented bark for incense. Bark, which when stripped away can give us wonderful colorings, as on the yew tree. Trunks of saplings that shelter the snowdrops so early in the spring. Right up to the trunks of the giant sequoias with girths of 20 feet or more. And trunks petrified to stone, where forests once grew in the deserts of Arizona. The wooden stockade, so easily assembled from forest trees, was the great symbol of security as far back as Roman times, and as recently as the paleface occupation of North America. Then there is the logging of tree trunks and the shaping of them for mine props. Taurus rules wood, the fashioning of wood, and furniture making of every conceivable style. These walnut 18th century English chairs reflect the Taurus glyph in the backrest, the cushioned seat, and the spread of the front legs, as well as in the hardwood. The 17th century casket here has a tortoiseshell base with a Taurian shape and ormolu mounts. Here we have a Taurian wall frame of the 17th century in the Palace of Versailles. From their general shape and through the morphology of the candlesticks they once carried for illumination, chandeliers and the crystals that are suspended from them are ruled by Taurus. The candle itself comes under the same rulership and brings with it ceremonial, figurative, and colloquial meanings. The snuffing of a candle, usually by squeezing the wick between the fingers, not only puts out the candlelight, but symbolically means he's snuffed it, he's dead, his light has gone out. candles were often carried to light the way, sometimes in elaborate candlesticks, simple sheltering ones, or inside lampshades. Ceremoniously, a bell, book, and candle indicated the excommunication of some unfortunate from the church. The bell rung, the book closed, and the candle snuffed, thus ceremoniously breaking all links. This famous painting by Holman Hunt of Jesus carrying the lighted lamp bears the title, "The Light of the World." The seven-armed candelabra of the Hebrew faith reminds us further of the religious ceremony of the candle. Burning the candle at both ends is the symbol of indulging in luxuries or habits you cannot afford, or rising early and going to bed late. The box and matches are both under the sign of Taurus, and were most often companions to the candle and sometimes to a jingle. Here comes the candle to light you to bed. Here comes the man to chop off your head, was a jingle we used as kids when candle lit us to bed, holidaying in a country house before electricity had reached it. Taurus rules stonework and bricks, and the parts of the garden where there are walls, walkways, and statues. Taurus is an earth sign, and he keeps his feet on the ground. Taurus rules holes in the ground, and the area of the garden or estate where moats or holes are dug, and especially where a sunken pond or swimming pool is the main feature. The overwhelming power of Taurus is expressed through its links with personal possessions and money. This used to be in terms of cash in the pocket and balance in the bank account. Today this is extended to include one's array of credit cards. Personal finances tend to dominate all Taurian factors in average man. Most of us cannot think without the status of our finances in the back of our minds. Balancing our own budget comes first, and balancing the national budget is left to the nation's leaders. But they both come under Taurus, as does the national and personal debt. The national debt of the United States is $3 trillion, a figure really beyond the grasp of the Taurian mind. The Wall Street crash of 1929 was a Taurian disaster on a national scale. All types of fuel and energy supply are ruled by Taurus. Under the disasters of this sign, therefore, we must also include the Aberfan mudslide, the oil spill of the Torrey Canyon, and the fire on the Piper Alpha oil platform. But Taurus is one of the 4 fixed signs of stability, typified with phrases like solid as a rock, or stick in the mud, and the words entrenched, rooted, established. In the world of finance we have fixed charges, fixed assets, and a fixed exchange rate at a bureau de change. Postage stamps, which we affix to letters, come under Taurus, which also rules tapes, string, and anything that binds up, like strapping, belts and girdles, especially where leather work is involved. And in this multiple Taurian image, the rope around the neck of the ox tethers it to the wooden stake in the ground. Taurus, as a fixed sign, rules red tape, and all that the figurative meaning of it implies: obstructive, routine, time-consuming, rubber-stamping bureaucracy. And the red tape and sealing wax used to bind government documents, symbolizing stodgy intransigence and the officials who resort to it. Taurus is fixed, entrenched, and attached. Mythologically, the sword embedded in the stone was a symbol of attachment to earthly possessions, or, at a higher level, to knightly discipline. When Arthur frees the sword, the legend changes the weapon into an instrument of chivalrous duty to the people whom Arthur is to serve. Taurus in the different houses can point to attachments in our own lives that will ultimately need to be overcome in Arthurian style. It is worth remembering that the opportunity to break attachments comes when Vulcan, the ruling planet of Taurus, goes retrograde. Taurus in the first house is attachment to the nation, to one's national identity. This can also be to a political party and the nation's leader, the Prime Minister or President. In the second house, Taurus suggests attachments to our own money, to our weekly or monthly paycheck, and the possessions wealth brings. Taurus in the third house suggests the attachment is to short daily trips, regular walks near one's home, to the shops perhaps, or the commuter taking a short train journey to work each day. In the fourth house, Taurus indicates the attachment is to the home and the mother. This is the young man or woman who just can't seem to make the break and leave the parental home. This is also the healthy attachment a mother feels for her new baby. In the fifth house, the attachments are to our sons and daughters, essential in their formative years, but when retained into adulthood, it can become restrictive and oppressive. This is also the place where attachments to life's little luxuries can occur. Taurus in the sixth house of single people suggests the attachment is to the unmarried state, common amongst young professional adults today. There may also be an attachment to eating out in restaurants and the enjoyment of being served, or indeed being of service themselves. In the seventh house, the attachment is to the partner. The married partner certainly, but in this position the car and the freedom it provides may also be subject to major attachments. Taurus in the eighth house suggests the attachment is to sex and animal habits. These people would maintain an unhealthy, destructive relationship for the sexual fulfillment alone. In the ninth house, the attachment is to higher education, to a university degree. This may even persist into middle age and beyond, with an endless stream of courses and qualifications for no apparent objective. In this position, there may also be an attachment to overseas travel. The 10th house, Taurus, indicates an attachment to the father, and all that he represents, the family name and escutcheon. Or here too can be found attachment to a particular brand name or shop like Tesco's or Harrods. Taurus in the 11th house indicates attachments to our friends and social group. They want to be involved in whatever activity their friends are doing, and would find it difficult to move away from their hometown and risk losing their old contacts. Finally, in the 12th house, the attachment is to some ideal, religion or institution. They may find their security within the comforting walls of a cloistered life, which ultimately leads to institutionalization. Vulcan and Taurus rule the stick, and all that the stick implies metaphorically. Sticks may be dried as tinder to start a fire, or bundled small as faggots, or carried longer in lengths collected from the woods. The Romans bundled sticks around the handles of their axes, and called them fasciculi, which was a symbol of modern Italian fascism. A single dry stick may be the symbol of rigidity, or when Vulcan is retrograde, brittleness. Then there is the walking stick for the elderly or disabled, and the cane, which gave us a caning, or the stick at school, corporal punishment, done away with today, fortunately. But beatings with sticks and cudgels, and even policemen's batons, are still common Taurian events at times of confrontation. In sport, Taurus and Vulcan rule the hockey stick, and the essence of the game, which is the Taurus bully. And then, of course, there's the game of baseball, built around the baseball bat, America's answer to the cricket bat, and the deep-throated roar from the crowd when either of these is used to good effect. But it is Gemini that rules the short runs that are also part of the game.
Ask not what America will do for you, but what together we can do for the freedom of man.
Taurus rules the spoken word and communication by means of sound, especially those made by the lips. Hence, speaking, pronunciation, phonetics, monologues, powwows, indabas, and deep conversations come under this sign.
And I've seen the promised land.
Taurus rules the parts of poetry which rely on sound, like onomatopoeia, and words that rhyme, where articulation is very important, as in giving a speech.
She's green as a bean, she's gliding with swans.
An afflicted Taurus suggests nonsense talk, jabbering and jabberwocky, or nonsense verse.
Beware the jabberwock, my son, the jaws that bite, the claws that catch. Beware the jub-jub bird, and shun the frumious bandersnatch.
When this sign is associated with Jupiter, it gives laughter, laughter that gurgles or even whoops. And when Pluto is associated with a sign, sounds become loud, sudden and coarse, like expletives, swear words or oaths.
White jeans don't wear them, you know.
Taurus encompasses pottery and the art of the potter, and often almost exactly models the Taurus glyph. Here it is seen flattened, and here the neck of the glyph is elegant and elongated. In his time the potter throws many types and styles of pots. In Omar Khayyam's Rubaiyat, the potter is likened to the soul, modelling many incarnations. For in the marketplace, one dusk of day, I watched the potter thumping his wet clay, and with its all-obliterated tongue it murmured, "Gently, brother, gently, pray." Taurus produces very fine carvings, like those on cameo brooches, and, of course, any jewellery, especially precious stones, that form part of the personal possessions. But the gold borderings are under Leo, of course. The Kiss by Rodin is doubly Taurian, a sculpture and a kiss. Sculpturing taken to what must be its ultimate is to be viewed on the cliffs of Mount Rushmore, where past presidents of the United States are carved out of solid rock. Challengingly, and almost within earshot, the largest carving in the world is in progress. This is the head of Chief Crazy Horse, with arm outstretched and pointing across the mane of his stallion. More of a drawing than a carving is the figure on the chalk hills of Dorset, somewhat embarrassing to the, "Oh, no sex, please, we're British." Taurus rules the act of drawing through the gripping of the pencil, though the finished black and white drawing and etchings come under another of the earth signs, Virgo. Taurus's entree to myth and legend mostly comes to us through its rulership over statues, any statues. The David, the slave, Eros, Lincoln. The statue of the Little Mermaid on Copenhagen's waterfront, visited by 500,000 tourists a year, is steeped in myth. She is the daughter of Neptune, king of the sea, and ruler of the sign of Cancer. She is half human and half fish. The legend is that in 300 years she will enter the human kingdom. Recently, she was decapitated at the neck with Taurian aplomb. The mythology of the Taurian love of statues, which must include the story of Moses' people worshipping the golden calf, is taken to its aesthetic climax in the story of Pygmalion, the legendary sculptor who fell in love with a statue of the female figure he was carving. In the story, his passion for her is so intense that she comes to life and steps down into his arms. Legend and myth connect with the first house and the soul's purpose. A problem Taurians have is to bring into living reality the virtual reality of their statuettes, their paintings, and other objets d'art in which they incorporate so many of their ideals. Bernard Shaw's play Pygmalion, converted into a musical, became a blockbuster and a box office hit. It illustrates this theme with a flower girl as the statue and Professor Higgins as the sculptor, anxious to launch her into the reality of his own social life. And this is the very function of Taurus and its ruler Vulcan, to detach that which is engrooved, to raise it from its consolidated state, to infuse it with soul, and to offer it excellence. Out of rock crystal, the chandelier. Out of granite, the figurine. And out of the flower girl, the Mayfair hostess.